Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches, where we cover 5 of the most interesting data breaches from this last week and one of our favorite bourbons. I'm Steve.
I'm Matt.
Davia.
Paul.
Frank. Yeah, Frank.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, Devia, what happened this week?
Okay, so it's been a very interesting week, and there's a couple of really juicy stories. I really wanted to start with Twitter though, and Twitter's verification chaos is now a cybersecurity problem. I'm not aware if you guys know that Twitter has changed. It has allowed people to change their verification status, and it seems like cyber criminals are already capitalizing on Twitter's ongoing verification chaos by sending phishing emails designed to steal the passwords of unwitting users. What do you have to say about this story?
I think this is great. So for only $8, we were able to get verified, right? And that's the same thing that everyone else did, is they got their accounts verified, and so they've done everything from like commit fraud to like stock market manipulation. I saw someone say that Lockheed Martin was going to stop selling weapons to the US because of human rights abuses. I've seen people impersonating Elon Musk, as well as impersonating Twitter. So like, I think it's fascinating when the verification system is some sort of authorization or authentication that you're supposed to inherently trust, and then you just open it up to anyone to buy for $8. So we got in because we're a legitimate company, and we got in before they froze it, but now it's all frozen. And so we'll just have to see how this plays out.
I'm very proud of it. Quickly wanted to point this out, you guys. So this is a screenshot of one of the phishing emails, I guess, that somebody received, and it's like, somebody says don't lose your free verified status, and the verification badge will be $19.99 per month instead of the $8.
It was going to be 20.
Yeah.
So Elon was arguing with Stephen King about how much it was going to cost.
Absolute comedy, like.
What do you think, Paul?
I think, well, it shows you even under the best circumstances, when security and general management of the company is running well, it's almost impossible to maintain security and prevent people from getting phished. But while with the cluster going on at Twitter right now, it's just ripe for harvesting. So they just jumped on it. I mean, it's so easy.
Frank, you can be verified as the president of Argentina, like right now.
Right now.
Twitter.
I could do that. Are we sure that's not Elon trolling?
Yeah.
I need a badge to confirm.
Yeah, I mean, if you let anyone be verified for $8, it actually does help legitimate businesses, but it also helps criminals. So
Exactly. It's like so. Oh man.
Pretty intense. So anyway, Australia has now decided that a new cyber task force will be supposedly hack the hackers behind the Medibank breach. It could put a target on Australia's back. So essentially what's happening is the government in Australia is launching an offensive against cyber criminals following a data breach that exposed millions of people's personal information. I do want to point out that Australia has been a topic of discussion for the past month or so, with a lot of breaches and cyber criminals attacking some of their critical infrastructure. So now they have a plan to go fight the hackers. So what do you have to say about this?
So this is Hackback, and I know a lot of companies and security advocates that have been advocating for Hackback. I think it'll be fascinating to see what happens to Australia, because the big worry is, in theory, that this would escalate, right? So China hacks Australia, Australia hacks back. China blockades Australia, right? Does it spill over into a military conflict? So it will be interesting to see, but I have to say that at least motivationally, I agree with Australia. The US government could and should be doing a lot more to protect US companies, including hacking back and taking people, off the internet that are attacking US companies.
So Steve, I have a question to you really, with your experience. I mean, hacking back is one thing, and I agree, you probably should. But when you talk about hacking back, I mean, I'm sure they're probably also hacking back in parallel. But the talk part is going to draw a lot of heat, I think, if you watch the video. I think that will draw some heat.
Yeah.
And surreptitiously, I suspect the US and maybe some others are doing a fair amount of hacking back. What do you know about that?
Well, so I sat in, this was a long time ago, back when you and I, Paul, worked at a totally different company.
Yep.
But, I sat in on a session, and it basically was a session of CISOs, and the topic was hack back. And CISO said, we want to hack back, but the US government won't let us. And there is some sort of government representative there that said, no, we're not going to let you, and we're probably never going to let you. So it was incredibly frustrating to hear, because companies can take steps to protect themselves, but they're legally not allowed to. If you hack back in the US, the FBI will investigate you
Correct.
and throw you in jail, not the hacker. And so it is a point of contention, because it's not like the FBI is sitting inside of corporations protecting them, right? So corporations have to only play defense, they can't play offense. And so unless the law changes, it's probably, you could be right, there could be a lot of hack back that's going on, but if they get caught, it's not legal, so.
So it's only if the law changes, what would cause that law to change?
Congress. Or if the DOJ came out and said, if a criminal organization is actively attacking you, like if they had a cyber stand your ground rule or a cyber castle doctrine, that everything would change, right? Like if you attack me, I'm gonna attack you back, because this is, I'm standing my ground. But the current advice, FBI advice, DOJ advice is that, no, you can't attack.
So question, do you think after Australia does it, that the US might follow, or do you think it's just never gonna happen?
I think that this will be a very interesting experiment, and I think if it works, other countries will follow. The US is not great learning from other countries' laws,
Redacted.
right?
Right.
So the US doesn't do what other countries do, even if those laws are highly effective, right? Like Australia had a gun violence problem.
Yeah.
They had a mandatory buyback, and their gun violence dropped. Like, and everyone is happy in Australia with that law. The US is very much choosing to ignore that.
And that's not a country of shrinking violence either.
I would say if a gun law works in Australia, it'll
Exactly.
work in the US.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Australia of the Americas.
Oh, yeah. No, they don't kid around there.
Yeah, so but the US doesn't like to follow other countries when it comes to laws. Like you'll get states. What could be interesting, so California did CCPA modeled after GDPR.
Yes.
It could be interesting if like the California DA
New York.
or DOJ decided to allow hackback or decided to even hack back on behalf of its, businesses. It could be interesting if the states did it. I don't know legally how that would work. I wouldn't put it up to the federal government, especially not now that we have a split Congress. I don't think we're gonna have any smart online legislation passing anytime soon.
No. I heard a theory back when we worked at that other company at a Hack Miami conference. From the man who gave the keynote, it was John McAfee. And he said he thinks they do it that way because they don't want anyone else to have the capability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what the FBI is doing. But
Right.
the FBI, as far as we know, has not been hacking back. The FBI did hack US companies to apply patches that were missing. So.
Oh, yeah.
Like.
Well, and we did
not been
Stuxnet.
shy about breaking into US businesses to like apply patches. We just don't hear anything about like them shutting down, actual hackers that are hacking US businesses.
It's, yeah. We just want to have our cake and eat it too. It's like, it was okay if we did Stuxnet, but you can't hack companies, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the US. Well, with that, I think it's time for the bourbon break. And
We got.
today's bourbon, which is
Steve's meter reads. that
empty.
it's-
So this is, or was, IW Harper, and it's their Cabernet Cask Reserve. So we've covered, IW Harper before. It's a good bourbon, solid bourbon, pretty common. This is where they take, their bourbon and then they finish it in Cabernet Sauvignon casks. And they have, batch numbers on this, whereas they don't typically have that. Actually, do they? I think one of my previous bottles had a batch number on it. But I don't see it on this one. So anyway, some of them have batch numbers. I don't know if this is small batch, but I would assume so, since it's a special and it's a reserve. But I have some strong opinions about this bourbon. But Divya, what can you tell us about this bourbon?
Okay, so you guys, quickly giving a rundown on Total Wine. IW Harper Cabernet Cask Reserve Bourbon runs for about like $50 for a 750 milliliters. It says Kentucky finished in Cabernet Sauvignon casks and then aged for a second time in luxury Cabernet casks. It sounds pretty interesting. Result is a wonderfully complex bourbon with flavorful bursts of toasted vanilla, ripe fruit, and spice for an exceptionally clean, lingering, smooth finish and a rich character. It's said, like one of the reviews said that Dink's thoughts say aroma is good, but has a sour finish. Do with that information what you will. And then on the nose, like going to one of the reviews, on the nose, it says that it is a caramel forward aroma, which greets the senses with a dark cherry and sweet raisin scents in tow. Black raspberry, creme brulee, vanilla. So it sounds like a mix of fruity and kind of like a vanilla. So what do you guys have to say about this bourbon?
So I'm tasting it and Matt is tasting it as well. Matt, what are you getting in terms of the smell?
I will agree with that,
Well, so I think it's got a very pleasant smell. I do smell vanilla. I do smell a semi-sweetness to it, which I would maybe honey or something like that.
Is it smooth?
It is smooth. It's really smooth. I think it's really the flavor that gets me. It's an exciting, like active, invigorating flavor. So IW Harper is usually a very smooth, single taste to it, like uniform all the way through. This has more high notes to it. You do get a bit more of that Cabernet cask, which comes off as like a woody, a little bit sweet. You know, I would give it a little bit more of like a aged oak to it. But like, you know, you try it, it hits you right up front with some really good flavors. Then it's just got this nice, pleasant, lingering finish. It feels like a good sipping bourbon. It is not overly hot. So yeah, I love this bourbon. It's a little bit pricey. So if you can find something like an Evan Williams single barrel, that's a better bang for your buck. But if you're looking for a good sipping bourbon, I really like this one. It's under $50, and I don't think there's anything unpleasant about it. I have tried some re-aged bourbons, like a port barrel bourbon, that sort of bourbon, and those are really hit or miss. We have one that we're going to feature later this year. A bourbon I like, and they aged it in port barrels, and ooh, they're trying so hard, it just doesn't work, right? But this really works. This is a very pleasant bourbon. What do you think, Matt?
No, I like it too. There's no burn. It's definitely the lasting taste. I was just curious, how does this hold up next to the other Harpers in the world?
Yeah, so IW Harper, it's a fairly inexpensive bourbon, and it's a good bourbon. It's smooth, but it's not the most exciting flavor, right? Like it's typically honey sweet, not a big burn, and that's it. Like it tastes kind of like bourbon, right?
So this is that.
This is much more interesting, like it's got some flavors to it. You're getting much more of an oakiness or a wood to it. So yeah, so the re-aging process did this bourbon a lot of good. If you have an IW Harper, good bourbon, but like you're probably gonna eventually mix it unless you like, you know, super uniform bourbons. This one you can pleasantly sip. And you don't forget that you're sipping it, right? It keeps reminding you that you're drinking something.
Love it.
So, yeah, according to how we rate bourbons, this bottle's empty.
The
So,
speed meter.
Yeah, the stick meter is 10 out of 10 because the
You
bottle's.
didn't like
that. You guys
I
destroyed
rate
that.
the port finished bourbon, that bottle is still quite full, so. And I swear that the Rebel Yell that we got 2 years ago is still not finished.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's been, no,
No.
it's probably at
Yeah.
Mickey's like fireplace, like to light up the campfire.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh,
That's kindling.
Yeah.
Except.
no, it's real,
Yeah.
for real. That thing, I mean, I smelled it briefly from like 10 feet away and I was still appalled.
So I know you said
So,
10, so that's your hard score, 10 out of 10?
No, so it's not the best bourbon I've had. It's really
For
good.
the price, like.
So out of 10, I would say it's a solid 7. That's 7 out of 10. That's 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10. But like, we've covered some really good bourbons on this show. The Garrison Brothers Bavora, still the best, still like 10 out of 10. Evan Williams is a solid like
Single
8.
barrel.
Yeah, the single barrel is like a solid 8 out of 10. This one, it's good. I recommend it.
I like the word solid beneath when it's like under 7 or so.
Yeah.
Like for the price, because there's been some bourbons that we've gotten, like that Stellan that we got, remember? That was like $55 and it was just average. It was like probably a 5.
There's some bourbon companies, they spend all their money on advertising. And to be fair, I was walking the aisle, I saw it and I said, that looks like an interesting bottle, let me get it.
Yeah.
So like the advertising worked, but like.
I
the
also
bourbon
shared
was
Stellan
good.
with Steve before, but he doesn't want to admit it and that's okay, but I did. Just saying. I don't remember.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I mean, it was
That's funny, but I didn't get it, but I got you the smooth ambler that you like, so.
Smooth Ambler was good. It's still a marketing bourbon.
Oh, yes, yeah, I figured. Okay,
And that's it for the bourbon break.
okay, guys.
Back to you, Divya, for story number 3.
Okay, wonderful, you guys. Story number 3, this is kind of like recent and happened November 11th. And this is about Sobeys, which is the Canadian food retail giant. Sobeys was hit by Black Pasta ransomware, which is like really funny to me because I'm like, Black Pasta, but it's a grocery store. Top tier company.
That's a
right?
stretch. It's a real stretch.
I know, but I mean, same thing, right? Pasta, we know. But anyway, 2 of the national grocery retailers in Canada with 134,000 employees. And I know some of the people were saying that they were not able to get their prescriptions.
Oof.
And that's just pretty sad. What do you guys have to say about the story?
So only point I'll make is if you make it so that people can't get their prescriptions, you are getting pretty close to killing someone, right?
Yeah.
And we saw how that went with Colonial Pipeline. I think a few people died after the Colonial Pipeline hack happened, and ReEvil no longer exists. Sounds like the Canadian government needs to take a page out of Australia's book and do a little hack back.
Yeah, and just to add a tiny thing to that, and in spite of that, they just deny.
Uh-huh.
I mean, come on.
And
We,
this was throughout Canada?
Like it's a grocery chain. So
we,
yeah.
we still get that. We'll get businesses that reach out to us and they're like, hey, we know we filed a data breach with the state government, but we don't like that you're talking about it. It's like, we deny that happened. It's like, you filed it, it's right here. And they're like, yeah, but it wasn't a big breach.
It's like your denial doesn't mean anything.
It's like,
And a breach is a breach. is a
Yeah.
breach.
right,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
if you like. Black Basta is not making this up, right?
Yeah.
These ransomware games provide proof. So like, I don't know why businesses, it's gotta be their lawyers, right?
I think
Lawyers
it is.
are under the impression that they can, deny, which is a legal word for lie, and
Wow.
reduce the harm to the business. And it's just not true, right? Like, we live in an interconnected world. If you're breached, you need to admit it and move on.
I think another thing that points out is that the gap between what we know, because we are researchers, we're deep in the forums, we actually know what's happening. The gap between that and what most people know is still pretty big. And so they can just deny, and they can obfuscate, and somehow they think they're going to get away with it.
Yeah, that's often the biggest surprise. People talk to us and they're like, why do I need hack notice?
Yeah.
If someone got hacked, wouldn't I hear about it in the news?
Mhm.
That's like, nope, no, you
Nope.
would not.
It's like, guess where the reporters are getting their information from, by the way?
Right.
Because
From us, yeah.
literally from us.
Like, we are seeing breaches as they're happening,
Mhm.
and they are covered by the news months after the fact,
Mhm.
right? And so the average person is just not at all informed as to how often their data is being breached. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day from a cyber insurance carrier, and they said, well, the problem is they're not going to disclose or announce anything until they think they understand the extent of the breach, what was stolen, who did it. I mean, on and on and on and on. And we're saying, well, but don't you want to know? I mean, someone wants to know.
Well, Black Basta will not have to wait. Because
Exactly. That's right.
they'll disclose immediately. The days of the PR team managing the breach announcement are
Right.
over. Yeah.
Right. The better to extort you with, my dear.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's been this one, Frank, I don't know if you've been seeing it, but there's been this one ransomware gang that keeps toying with one of their victims. They're like, if you don't pay, we're gonna slowly release more and more information about you. And they're like, okay, it's an industrial controls company. Okay, it's an industrial controls company that starts with a P. Like they're slowly revealing the name of the company. And like they're like, all right, one more day, and like we'll reveal like, oh, and they're located in Italy, right?
That's like a torture.
Yeah.
That leads me to my second point. I had a short fact. Ransomware actors tend to strike on holidays. I think this happened over a holiday or a weekend, because they know companies' human defenses often aren't as strong or robust at those times. It allows them to evade detection, do more damage, and steal more data as security teams scramble to mobilize a response, right?
Yep.
Now,
Just remember that Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday is all holidays for hackers as well.
Yeah.
exactly.
Hackers
The
love
hunting holiday.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday. That's
Paying attention.
They
Yeah.
can get
Yeah.
their house right today.
They are always more active, and for a reason, of course. Now, keeping this in mind, you will likely want to, I don't know, beef up your security measures. I don't know, after tidying and enclosing the place on Friday nights.
Yeah.
I don't know. Speaking my mind out, let me know if you differ. Perhaps getting off the grid for a while, locking your internal network for some hours, could not only save your weekend losses, but maybe sometime before your imminent reputational death.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is if you have smaller staff during the holidays, you should have fewer assets running during the holidays, right? Like turn off certain systems, lock down firewalls, right? Like if you aren't fully prepared for an onslaught of attacks during a holiday, right? Because you're short-staffed, then like reduce your risk, right? Like to lock down laptops, turn off firewalls, turn off VPNs, like if everyone's off for Thanksgiving, like don't let them VPN in.
It's just because statistically, it happens more often at that time. So you should do it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Everybody's off guard too, so it makes sense.
Well, at this point in time, everyone is looking for a deal, so even an email or a text message
Yeah.
that might look a little weird, that might save them 20% on a flat screen TV for.
They're gonna click.
Click.
It's a good
So-
deal.
Good deal, yeah, you should totally. do
Yeah.
that.
So what I was just gonna add, so everything Frank said is true. It's all true. Lock it down, close down parts of the network. But the problem is what you're saying is, and by the way, tell all your employees to change their security behavior overnight. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
Not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
you gotta start, you can't start in Thanksgiving, you gotta start January 1st.
Correct.
This is kind of like, so the next two stories are my favorites of the evening. Number one is Whoosh. Whoosh confirms a data breach after hackers sells 7.2 million user records. Now check this out. Russian scooter sharing service Whoosh has confirmed a data breach after hackers started to sell the database of 7.2 million customers. It is the leading urban mobility service platform operating in 40 cities with over 75,000 scooters.
In Russia.
In Russia,
Yeah.
in Russia. And this is a file, which says like Whoosh, Russian leader in cake sharing, obviously MVP user with
Oh.
all the heat. We're
Story number
seeing-
5.
moving on to story number 5. Okay, so totally, this is my favorite story of the evening. Steve thinks there's.
Oh, my God.
There's something wrong with me, but a hacker was charged with extorting online psychotherapy services. 25-year-old Finnish man, and one thing I found interesting was that in Finland, they don't really publicly publish like highly sensitive, like criminals, but they did for this guy. So Julia Ezekiel Kivimaki, a notorious hacker who at the tender age of 17 had been convicted of more than 50,000 cyber crimes, including data breaches, payment fraud, and operating botnets, and called in bomb threats. But the thing that got him in trouble is this right here.
Oh, my God.
He said that if we don't receive your payment within 24 hours, you'll he said that like if we don't receive your payment, you're going to see your name, address, phone number, social security number, as well as your detailed medical history, which includes transcripts of your conversations with a therapist, psychiatrist at the Vastimo. What do you guys have to say about this? Never heard anything like this before.
So I think the threat of releasing therapy notes, that's a big one, right? That'll motivate a lot of people to pay a ransom. I question why therapy notes were on a computer. That sounds like a bad idea.
In a
Like,
SQL database.
yeah, don't do that. Or why would you then connect that computer to the internet, right? Like there's certain things that shouldn't be connected to the internet, and that's one of them. I think it's fascinating to Divya's point. The EU does not disclose data breaches. So there's GDPR all throughout the EU, but they don't actually disclose the data breaches to anyone else. So we're often wondering what's really going on in Europe. This is one of the rare cases where Europe is releasing details about a specific hack. And if the rest of the hacks are as spicy as this one, oh boy, it's getting interesting over there.
I'm just like, I would be so, I'm like, my therapy notes would be like a whole TikTok influencer account. Like literally, I would be in there like, okay, hi, I'm back. What do you want? But
Well, that could
I'm just saying.
that could destroy someone's life.
That's
right?
what I'm
That's
saying.
right.
Because
Their life, their practice.
right. Well, not, I wasn't thinking only about the doctor, but
No,
the patient.
The patient,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because like, what if someone disclosed like illegal activity to a therapist, right?
Which they do a lot.
But because,
That's like extremely sensitive,
yeah.
the most kind of sensitive.
They feel like they could do it. Yeah, like, I think this goes to all doctors, just like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't put your notes online where a hacker could steal them.
Right. And don't assume that some human won't be as heinous as this kid, because what he revealed was he tried to hack he tried to extort the company and they didn't go. He went right to the people and he had a discount plan, like 200 now or 500 later. The kid, he's just utterly heinous and he was going for the money.
I mean, what's crazy is that this dude has like 50,000 cyber incidents under his belt, and he's still
Oh, yeah.
wanted.
But
person.
that's not hard.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, it's not hard. Like, you download some scripts, you have them automatically scan and automatically infiltrate, and you can very quickly break into a lot of places.
That's
Hey, but even though this is bad and to be taken seriously, and because there's a fun side to every story, and just so you know that I have read the stories, the fun fact about this story is that the hacker actually shot himself in the foot. Let me read this
He
to you.
did. That's right.
On October 23, 2020, Ransom Man, that's the nickname, uploaded to the dark web a large compressed file that included all of the stolen Vastamo patient records. But investigators found the file also contained an entire copy of Ransom Man's home folder. A likely mistake that exposed a number of clues that they say point to Kivimaki. That's the guy, that's the hacker.
All right, this has been an episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches. If you liked everything you saw today, that means B did some really good edits. If you hated everything you saw today, you probably live in Finland or you're a ransom man watching this from your secret ransom man cave. Yeah. Or you're on a scooter in Russia.
That's right. Or you work for Twitter.
Yeah. Twitter. Does
Oh,
anyone
well.
work for Twitter? I don't think they have employees anymore.
No, no one works for Twitter anymore.
Only Elon.
Oh, yeah, only the Musk. All right.
Elon.